Blog Talk Radio. Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach, always available too at carolthecoach.com.
Now I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I am married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell, so you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
Hi there. I am Carol the Coach, and I am so happy to be with you tonight. Last week, we had a very special guest, Dr. Doug Weiss, who talked about sexual addiction and taking your life to the next level, and once you get into recovery, becoming a recovery coach. And, I have worked with several of his clients, and they are on fire when it comes to following through with different programs that help the people that they fellowship with. And, they're helping them with RIM, the images that stop you from getting where you need to go. They help with anorexia. So many people think that sexual addiction is about out-of-control behavior, but oftentimes it is also a disorder where you can go for long periods of time without having sex. And I am a coach and a mental health therapist, so I really believe in taking people's lives to the next level. And to do that requires people get into solid recovery so they can then figure out what to do to give back, to make a difference in the lives of others. So I put together this presentation. It was kind of a TED Talk, but it was a presentation about how sex addiction can really bring about many, many, many gifts. And I live this. I live with people who have addictions to drugs or alcohol, and they've been in recovery 20, 25 years, and they are living their highest potential. They're giving back. Of course, they're being sponsors. But in addition to being sponsors, they are working with people on new and different levels. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the gifts of sex addiction, and here's why. If you're listening to this show, you either have a full-fledged sex addiction, you love somebody who has a sex addiction, or you're questioning whether you have a sex addiction. Now, there is no doubt that there's quite a stigma to sexual addiction, and I promise you that that's going to change. but we are all just pioneers in this field. It's just getting off the ground, and people are ignorant to what it entails. I'm going to be on Fox tomorrow, not National Fox, but Fox here in Indianapolis at 7:20, and you might Google it. I'm going to be talking about why can a woman, whether she be a teacher, a neighbor, whatever, why can a woman have sex with an underaged minor and it not necessarily be seen as the same issue as a man who's molesting his neighbor? You know, why is there that discrepancy and disparity between this condition? And I'll tell you what I'm going to be educating Fox about is I'm going to be saying, you know what, we definitely know that any adult who actively is involved in sexual addiction, in a sexual relationship with a child, they're exploiting. Now, women are usually relationship exploiters. They're exploiting somebody for the sake of a relationship. And oftentimes men are exploiting for sexual purposes. Now, this doesn't mean that a woman can't exploit for sexuality or that a man can't exploit for relationships. I'm generalizing here because this is the pattern that I've seen. We are much more understanding and compassionate if we think that the exploitation is relationship-oriented. And yet, that is just as harmful, just as destructive as sexual exploitation. Maybe even more so in some ways because it really confuses the victim/survivor. You know, for a young boy who's 11, 12, 14, 16, 17 even, if they're engaged in an affair with their female teacher, their female neighbor, their friend's mother, there's almost always a relationship component, and it makes it very difficult to separate what's the relationship versus what's the sexuality, because sexuality is almost always a part of that. Boundaries are boundaries. And we in this world have to have boundaries so that we don't confuse and take advantage of kids. And it matters not whether they're relationship boundary violations or sexual boundary violations. It ends up creating very disturbing situations for kids that grow up to be adults. Many times they try to reenact that trauma by taking advantage of others in the same way, or by putting themselves in situations where they're in confusing relationships with boundary violations. And so I can't stress enough that although they are different types of boundary violations, they are both equally harmful. And we're just now learning about them. And that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So feel free to Google or YouTube Fox 59 in Indianapolis. I'm on at 7:20. Carol the Coach, a.k.a. Carol Jurgensen Sheets, and you'll get to see me in action talking about how our society has not really understood the travesty of these kind of boundary violations. Oh, yes, there are plenty of women that have gone to jail. I'm not saying that they don't have consequences to pay. But in general, Fox 59 is going to be saying there's oftentimes an attitude of, wow, was that kid lucky to be with a partner who was 10, 15, 20 years older than he or she. Well, than he. And I'm here to tell you, no such deal. There's no such luck. Okay, I digress because, like I said, I was going to be talking about the gifts of sexual addiction. Now, no one can argue that we're sexually preoccupied as a nation. Did you know that 72 million people visit internet sites per month? 18 to 24 million people report that they suffer from some sort of sexual addiction. This means that about 6 to 8% of the population report that they have a sexual addiction. Women report that they are addicted to porn. 80% of women who have porn addictions typically.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness.
Well, I don't know how he got up here, but I'm telling you, I've taken him off. You know, sometimes when we're doing internet radio, there will be snafus and glitches, so please, I apologize for that. Now, sex addicts in recovery are a rare breed. They have participated in behaviors that have created a lot of guilt and shame. And yet once they get into recovery, they are transformed into men and women that are kind, compassionate, loving, in a good way, empathetic, supportive, and insightful. I've been in this business for 35 years, and I have never worked with a greater group of men and women. And tonight we're going to be talking about the guys. You know, sexual addiction is more than porn. There are actually 10 types of sexual addictions. As I list these sexual addictions, you be thinking about whether you might have one of these compulsions. Fantasy sex. You know, do you objectify men or women and reduce them to sexual objects? Seductive role sex. Do you enjoy sex, but in actuality, the thrill of the chase, the pursuit, and the seduction is the obsession? Voyeuristic sex. Do you get and receive visual arousal from pornography or viewing pornography anonymously? Is that the turn on? To be able to view sexuality without the person knowing that? And I would ask you to be honest here. Is that something? And if you think about that, think about what it is that is actually at the height of your compulsion, because that is so important. All right. So, are you a voyeur? Do you like to watch? Are you an exhibitionist? Because exhibitionist sex is a sexual addiction that one gets from the sexual charge from exposing the self and the reaction it gets. I got lots of people that really love the secrecy of exhibitionism because they love what that entails, and then they love to expose others to that and watch the reaction. Paying for sex. That's a type of sexual addiction where prostitution and massages are typically utilized for sexual risk and charge. Anonymous sex. This is high-risk sex with unknown persons. Trading for sex. Selling or bartering for sex or power. Intrusive sex. This is about boundary violation with discovery. Now, intrusive sex means that somebody takes advantage of you without your knowledge. That may be frauderism, where you have been touched, you turn around, and nobody acknowledges that they've touched you. Or you go out on a date, you've been given a date rape drug, and you've experienced sex without any recollection. Pain exchange sex. Some people are sexually addicted to being humiliated, punished, or hurt for sexual pleasure. And last but not least, exploitive sex. This is molestation. This is rape. This is when somebody is taken advantage of sexually without their permission or their consent. And if there's consent, it is under the guise of a relationship. Now, technically, in my everyday practice, I work with the first 6 types. Since this problem was addressed in 1983, some have argued that sexual addiction doesn't exist, or it's exaggerated, and it's truly not an issue. And for those people that don't understand it, I don't hold a grudge because, this is a world that a lot of people don't want to know about. Or they want to rationalize and defend. As I said, I'm going to be doing that Fox 59 interview tomorrow. And a lot of people are saying, you know what, that kid is a lucky kid. He's getting his sexual education with somebody older and wiser who's kind and compassionate. That's the thrill of every boy. Now, when I started my training, Tiger Woods reported that he had a sexual addiction. And as I did television and radio shows, the most common comment I got was, well, who wouldn't take advantage of those opportunities if you were rich and talented? So let me share that my experience with Tiger and many other people is that eventually it disrupts relationships. They want to stop and they can't. And when you can't stop a sexual behavior, it does become what we call sexual addiction. Call it hypersexuality, call it whatever you want, but it is a behavior that it is unstoppable. Compulsive sexual addiction means that an addict can't stop their behavior, and this results in loss of job, loss of relationships, loss of money, loss of control, lots and lots and lots of efforts to stop. You know, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times, that men and women would say, I promise this is the last time. I promise I will stop. This behavior will stop tomorrow. And then, of course, it never does. And when sexual addiction becomes the primary preoccupation, there's an inability to fulfill obligations and a continuation despite consequences. Men and women lose their jobs. They lose money. They lose their relationships. And yet they continue to do this behavior. Sexual addiction always gets worse. It always escalates. So when I talk to lots of men who are looking at porn, they said, from college to 30s, 35s, I was looking at a couple hours of porn a day, maybe every other day. It was no big deal. But then their behavior worsened. The type of pornography they looked at was worse. They began to get into chat rooms. They began to lose their boundaries at work. If somebody came on to them, they assumed it was for sexual purposes only. And the behavior escalated. Many, many losses. Lots of problems. And here's what sexual addiction is. It's withdrawals. It has physical withdrawals. So, I want to talk to you about not only the way sexual addiction has ruined lives, but also the gifts that it has given. Because you're here to hear about the gifts. Men who recover from sexual addiction are the new and improved. I guarantee you their relationships are deeper and more meaningful, and they find ways to give back to their communities because they want to make a difference. Sex addiction can make you a better person, but that requires that you allow it to redirect you to recovery. And when you're in active recovery, you become transformed and live your highest self. Now, Patrick Carnes is the founder of Sex Addiction, and he says that recovery is impossible if you do it alone. I mean, sure, there may be a few of you who can do it on their own and white-knuckle it, but invariably, sex addiction requires a committee. And the first 5 tools are about developing that committee. There are 10 tools that can take a sex addict to their highest self, and they are a fellowship program, whether that's a 12-step program like SA or SAA, or a recovery program like Recovery Nation. Addicts need people and principles to get healthy. And when they live those principles, they become better people. Better people than your average Joe. So if you're out there and you don't have a sexual addiction, my guess is that a recovering addict is actually healthier, happier, and making more of a difference than you are. That's not to put you down. That's just to say sexual addiction leaves gifts. Now, sexual addiction requires a guide. Whether it be a recovery coach or a sponsor, they need someone healthier and wiser to assist them in their journey. Sex addicts in recovery rely on healthy relationships to assist them in their goals. And when they have a sponsor and they have a 12-step program, or another recovery program, they develop a fellowship of other people who have experienced the same thing, and this allows them the gift of receiving. How many of you are out there comfortable with sharing your authentic self? It truly is a gift to be genuine and authentic. Sex addicts learn that they're vulnerable to their past and their present, which can put them at risk to the future. And since many sex addicts are men, although women are beginning to admit that they too have this disorder, they have to explore what part of their past may have contributed to their problems. You know, it's reported that 1 out of every 10 males have been molested before the age of 8. And sex addicts know that they have to heal the wounds if they're going to interrupt and recover from the compulsion of acting out sexually. These men start by going to support groups and gaining the courage to seek out counseling. Once they have healed from the wounds, they're ready to take their life to the next level. And what I know is for every 8 men out there in this group, average group of men, one of you has been sexually molested and more than likely hasn't gotten the help you need. So if that has happened, sex addicts seek out coaching so they, can actualize their potential. And the interesting thing is sex addicts really should find certified sexual addiction therapists. And they need to get themselves into a group so that they can do the work with other men. My experience is I'm a great therapist. I do fabulous work. But put me in a room with other sex addicts who can crosstalk, and together our synergy is such that each sex addict, as well as myself included, being a facilitator, a human being, will learn so much more because of the synergy of the group. Did you know that sex addicts tend to follow the 4 most important principles in coaching? Being Carol the coach, I know what these coaching principles are. First, you need to take 100% responsibility for your behavior. Second, you learn how to go for the big ask. Third, you believe in your authentic self and live that life without lying, by being transparent, and by being authentic. And lastly, you give back to the world. Those 4 principles are essential in sharing your gifts of sexual addiction recovery. Now, what do they mean? Okay. Well, taking 100% responsibility for your behavior means that no matter what happened in your childhood, no matter what's going on in your marriage, no matter how stressful the job, you have to say, I am 100% responsible for changing my life, and not blaming it on anything other than my compulsive and habitual behaviors. And when you take 100% responsibility for your behavior, you are then much more likely to get out of denial. Patrick Carnes has these 30 recovery tasks to work through, and the first one is getting out of denial. And as long as you say, well, I got that fantasy about her, and I'm not really going to share it with anybody because it's just a thought. It's not going anywhere. Then you're in denial of how that's lighting up your brain. But if you take 100% responsibility and you say, the minute I have a fantasy about the mail woman, about the clerk, about the guy who is our food server, the minute you take responsibility and change that immediately from a fantasy to a reality, hey, that's somebody's mother, brother, sister, father, hey, I don't need to be doing that. And then think about something that is real, like your own children, your own wife, your own search for meaning in life. then you're being 100% responsible. Go for the big ask. Men and women alike are not good at asking. And the most beautiful thing happens in recovery. You call people and you say, I'm in trouble, I'm confused, I'm lost, my wife's mad at me, I can't stop something, I have stopped something, I want to start it back up. You go for the big ask, whether it's with your therapist, with your sponsor, with the fellowship. And when you go for that big ask, you stop doing it alone. And when you stop doing it alone, you've developed that committee that you need to fight this illness. And boy, I got to tell you, that is amazing. You know, I said earlier, you've got to believe in your authentic self, which means that you've got to be honest, you've got to be open, you've got to be transparent. No more lies. No saying that you have to work on work when you were going to look at porn. No more lies about the woman that texted you because she didn't know you were in recovery anymore. You delete her number. You don't respond. You treat it as if it no longer has any power over you. When you work on your authentic self, you have integrity. And when you have integrity, that is the greatest gift you can have as a human being. And I have to admit, most of the time, I'm working with people that are in a 12-step recovery program that believes in a higher power. But whether you believe in that higher power or not, this addiction requires that you be part of a program where you give back. We talked about how Doug Weiss is helping people to give back. We talked about how in the 12-step program, the 12th step is about giving back. In Recovery Nation, once you've gone through the program, you work to be a coach. When you get back to the world, you've come full circle. You've made a difference, you've had a purpose, and you're living your highest self. Recovering sex addicts make for better doctors, firemen, CEOs, teachers, pastors, counselors, priests, managers, let alone husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons. Recovering sex addicts are a special breed. They are kind, compassionate, non-judgmental, empathetic individuals that want to take their lives to the next level. You know, oftentimes men get a bad rap. You know, they're said to think with their penis instead of their mind. And I'm telling you, a recovering sex addict has so much heart, so much authenticity, so much compassion. They are so non-judgmental because they've been in the depths of despair, and they know where other people are at, and they know what hope, strength, and recovery can occur. I am honored and proud to work with these guys, and they have made me a better person. And that's the gift of sexual addiction. So I don't know what you think. I don't know if there was any part of you that could relate to how you could be a better person if you let yourself go through the recovery process and went full circle and had much to give. But I got to tell you, I always tell people, this isn't meant to be cocky. It's not meant to be conceited. But I'm one of the best therapists in Indianapolis. And I decided to work with this group of people because it's the depth of the darkness that turns to light. And when people do a full-blown recovery, They never look back. That's what the promises are all about in the big book, which, of course, I'm referencing the AA book, Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you have a success story, I would love to hear about it, and you can email me at carolthecoach@aol.com. And I cannot emphasize enough how much this work has transformed my life. And that's why I have this website, and it's called Sex Help with Carol the Coach. And you can get on that site and take a few tests and figure out how your life is working for you or against you, and what you can do to transform. And I cannot emphasize enough that the men that I have worked with, as well as the women, have experienced such pain, such blame, and such shame, and they really are willing to take their life to the next hope, to the next level. You know, sexual addiction is an illness that requires specialized treatment. And I'm proud to be a certified sexual addiction counselor because I've been trained with the greatest researchers, physicians, and therapists who have devoted their clinical lives to working with this addiction and working with the trauma and the pain that continues. If you're listening to this show and you're wondering if you have a problem, then I would encourage you to take the SAST. You can go to my website, Sex Help with Carol the Coach, and you can take that test. And if it shows that you have a sexual addiction, I would encourage you to put your zip code into sexhelp.com and find out if they're a certified sexual addiction counselor for you. And if there isn't, contact me. Let's get you set up with a much more extensive test, and let's figure out what's going on for you so that I can get you to the right resources. I can consult with you through Skype or phone because I know you're in great pain. Whether it's you or a loved one that loves a sex addict, there's lots of problems that come with this impulse control problem. It's interfering with relationships. It's interfering with lives. Children are affected. And many therapists don't have the skills to guide you through the recovery. I got passion, and I want your heart to feel whole. So let's do this together. If you can't find somebody in your area, let's get you to the right place. That's why I do this show every night. And boy, I got to tell you, I just continue to work on certifications because I want to make it easier for you. If you go on my website, you'll get to see an endorsement from Dr. Patrick Carnes, and you'll get to hear some interesting stories that I had on mainstream radio about compulsivity. And there's a section about hope for addicts who have contributed to my website by talking about the 3 stages of recovery, and hope for partners who have talked about everything that they've gone through and how important it is to have your boundaries with partners and to have good self-care. We talk about resources, books that you can read that are really great, websites that you can go to that will take your life to the next level, and newsletters that I am going to start working on sending out. I must admit I haven't done that yet. I'm terrible. I haven't done it because I'm so busy, but I promise you, my commitment is to you that I will get a newsletter out by the end of September. You know, right now I'm working on a book to benefit AFAR. That's the research group for sexual addiction. And it will have transcripts of at least 30 of my shows. And I can't wait to sell that ebook to you for only $9.95, every single bit of it going to research. Because I really believe in research. You know, so many people say that this illness does not exist because they don't know about the research that's been put into this. And when you take that STI or that SAST, that's additional research that's compiled. Matter of fact, if you're a partner, there is a research study going on right now. The partner must be at least 25 years old and have been with their partner in a committed relationship for at least 2 years. You have to be working with a therapist. And Christy Rose, the data and research PhD student, is compiling information, 60 to 90-minute face-to-face. Many of my clients have done the study, and it really helps because, like I said, we're pioneers in the field. If you want to enroll in this study and you're a partner, and I would beg you to do that, you've got to meet the criteria. You have to be 25 years or older, at least been in the relationship for 2 years, and your partner has to be participating in a 12-step support group. Tell Christy I sent you. Her number is 262-705-7745, and her email address is krose16@capellauniversity.edu. I have lots of links on my website to things like, is it an addiction or is it an excuse? What about cyber sex? I have a way for you to contact me if you've got questions. And I have a way for you to fill out forms if you're going to be seeing me in person or through Skype. If you're an individual, you fill out the individual forms. If you're part of a couple, you and your partner fill those out. Well, I hope that I have encouraged you to know that there are many gifts to having had a sexual addiction and to be in full-blown recovery. I thank you so much for allowing me to help you take your life to the next level. And I appreciate that you're listening to the show. As I say at the end of every radio show, there will only be one of you at all times, and I fearlessly want you to have the courage to be yourself. Get into recovery, trust the process, have faith, and surrender to what is, because it'll take you to great places. You're listening to Carol the Coach. This is Sex Help with Carol the Coach.